Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting of Council on Tuesday, 15th of July, 2025. To start the official proceedings, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation, and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. Tonight we have 7 councillors present. Councillor Hastwell is on a leave of absence. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest? No, fantastic. At item 4, we have confirmation of minutes. 4.1, meeting of council, 17th of June, 2025. Councillors, Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor, I'd like to move that the minutes of the meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 17th of June, 2025 be confirmed.
Fantastic. And a seconder.
I'll second, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favour? That's all of us. Motion is carried. At item 5, we have acknowledgements and there are nil. At item 6, we have public time. I think we've got a couple of people in the gallery who'd like to speak tonight. So can we have a motion to suspend standing orders? Whoop, you both went up.
So moved.
Thank you. And a seconder? Fantastic. All in favour? That's all of us. Motion carries and we have suspended standing orders. So for public time, anyone who wishes to speak is welcome to do so. Where's my thing? It's over here. You've generally got 3 minutes. We'll give you kind of a little, we'll let you know, you'll hear a little timer go off when you've got 30 seconds left. I won't read the whole thing out. Just, be polite and remember that we're people as well. And you don't have to have a question in there. We have relaxed it a bit so it can be a statement. So does anyone wish to speak to council? All right, maybe I misread this situation. Does anyone in the gallery want to speak? Yeah, fantastic. Come forward, please. And if you can just come to the lectern and say your name, and then you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Anea. My name's Roger Archbold. I'm here tonight representing my community in Wesley Hill to express strong support for any measures that can calm traffic on Farron Street in Wesley Hill. Now, our petition gathered the signatures and support of all residents on the unsealed section of Farron Street and called for urgent implementation of traffic calming measures. At the time of collecting signatures, I discussed a range of possible traffic calming measures, and all residents are in support of a speed reduction to 40 k's an hour. Now, we appreciate that council is engaged with the community and reviewed the speed data, which clearly shows that most drivers are already travelling at around 40 k's an hour, which is well below the current 50 k's an hour speed limit. Now, while that's encouraging, unfortunately, there's still a number of drivers on a daily basis who are travelling well above that. And that puts residents, walkers and local wildlife, of which there are a lot, at risk. Now, we're concerned that simply putting up signs reinforcing the existing 50 k's an hour limit would be counterproductive. It could actually encourage drivers to speed up and not slow down. We see the best outcome here to be a formal speed reduction to 40 k's an hour. And we ask that council would do everything it can to make this happen. We also think that local traffic only signage will be beneficial, as is the proposed use of the speed trailer to educate drivers. So we as the community, we ask council to please do not approve the installation of 50 k an hour signage and instead support these additional measures of formal speed reduction and signage. Thanks for listening and acting to make our community safer.
Thank you, Mr. Archbold. And as you've said, the item is on the agenda for decision a little bit later on. So we'll get to it then if that's okay. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to council tonight? Thank you. Just come forward, and if you can let us know your name and if you're speaking on behalf of anyone, that would be fantastic.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Caitlin O'Halloran. I'm a member of the Castlemaine Secondary College leadership team, and I'm speaking on behalf of our principal, Justin Hurd, who is currently unwell and unable to attend tonight's meeting. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm here to strongly advocate for Castlemaine Secondary College as the preferred location for the proposed soccer facility identified in a recent feasibility study. This is more than just a sporting asset, it's a strategic investment in the health, engagement, and future of our youth and community. A facility at CSC offers the best return on investment. It would be used daily by over hundreds of students during school hours and be available to local clubs, community groups, and regional competitions on evenings and weekends. That level of daily year-round usage ensures the infrastructure delivers maximum value from day one. Importantly, a soccer facility at the college would be a financially sustainable option. The initial establishment and ongoing maintenance costs can be shared among multiple stakeholders: council, the college, local sporting groups, and external partners. This shared responsibility model ensures long-term viability without placing the full burden on any one group. This proposal is not just theoretical, it forms part of the college's new master plan, which is focused on improving facilities and building mutually beneficial partnerships with the broader community. A soccer facility aligns perfectly with that vision and reflects on our commitment to being a central, connected, and inclusive public space. The pitch would also be accessible to local primary schools, of which many currently have limited access to quality sports fields. This opens up opportunities for inter-school sport, PE programs, and community development across the entire Shire. Despite limited facilities, our students are already achieving great things. For example, our intermediate girls soccer team were runners-up in the state final last year, a remarkable effort under less than ideal training conditions. We are proud of this success and other sporting success from this year, and are committed to furthering women's participation in sport, starting with creating the spaces that make it possible. Finally, we know that high-quality sporting opportunities lead to better wellbeing outcomes, increased school engagement, and stronger links between students and their community. A facility at CSC would become a hub of shared use, pride, and participation. On behalf of the college, I urge you to support a location that reflects shared value, high usage, financial responsibility, and long-term benefit for our students and for the wider Mount Alexander Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Do you mind? I think councillors may have a question, if that's okay. Councillor Maltby.
I will do my best.
No
Yeah.
worries.
Do you have change facilities available?
We do have some change facilities in our college gym at the moment. I'm not across the master plan. As I mentioned, our principal is currently unwell at the moment, so I was, I guess, the stand-in. But we currently do have some change facilities in our gym. I'm just not sure if then would need additional facilities to cater for, I guess, for more people using it as well. Yeah.
I might be able to answer that.
Councillor Maddock.
Because I was at a workshop on the master plan, and there's an intention to build new change facilities, and it's quite impressive. So,
Excuse me, the intention to build the facilities is by the secondary college.
it's
Is
in the secondary college master plan.
is it budgeted?
Of course not.
Would I be able to ask you one more question? You may not know the answer to it. No, that's so fine. I understand. I was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and Lucas, you may know this as well. I was under the impression that like further kind of surveys with the CSC student population had kind of given me the sense that they were more keen on retaining AFL facilities over soccer. Do you know anything about that?
No, not completely across that. I guess there's a wide range of students wanting to participate in a wide range of sports, and the more top grade facilities we have, the better outcomes as well. And I guess this is the start.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Future. Thank you.
No worries. All right, and obviously, this matter's also on our agenda tonight, so we will be also getting to this in due time. Does anyone else from the gallery wish to speak? All right. That's all right.
I'm Edwina Reid. I'm the president of Castlemaine Goldfields Football Club. Sorry, unfortunately, I only had very short notice that this was coming to the council tonight. But yes, I just wanted to, it's obviously in the report already, there's been consultation undertaken with the club by council, and really our interest is in maximising the amount of space available. We have a really large club, I believe the largest sporting club in Mount Alexander Shire Council, approximately 600 players. And we have put forward our position as Wesley Hill as our preferred option for the current at the current time, and that has been because it offers more space, and we are also very supportive of developing facilities at the secondary college. Unfortunately, the space available, as far as we understand, is only for one pitch at the moment. Football Victoria have let us know that for a club of our size, a club which also is growing, that 3 full-size pitches would be the recommended amount. Currently, we have 1. Yeah, so we are supportive, of course, of developing facilities at the secondary college as well, but I think a facility only at the secondary college at this point would just leave us in the same position that we're in now and wouldn't be enough to meet all of our needs at the moment.
Great, thank you, Edwina. All right, and again, this is on the agenda. Stay tuned. We'll be talking about it again in a little bit. Councillor Maddock.
Sorry, Edwina, do you mind if I ask a question? It's fine if you can't answer it, but I understand that the pitch that was proposed for Castlemaine Secondary College is a synthetic pitch as well, which is, I imagine, changes things a little bit too. Are you able to, does the club have a preference for natural over synthetic turf or any?
I think there are pros and cons to each. The benefits of the synthetic is obviously in an unpredictable climate, it has that certainty that you can always play on a synthetic pitch, and you can get a lot more hours of usage out of a synthetic pitch. I think currently at Tewton, the pitch is way overused and it has a lot of damage, and so the synthetic pitch has that advantage. I mean, I think that people have personal preferences. They say they like to play on synthetic or like to play on grass, but most of our club members wouldn't have had the opportunity. There's only really one in Bendigo that's in use at Epsom, so most wouldn't really have had much experience. So some people might express a preference for turf, but I guess in terms of year-round access, there are lots of benefits to synthetic. One of the hesitations, I think, and this is something that would have to be worked through, obviously, with the secondary college and with council, from the club's perspective, is some hesitation around the costs, the replacement costs. So obviously there's a 10-year, has about a 10-year lifespan, a synthetic, and then it has quite a significant cost at the end of that to replace it. So I guess the club, as a volunteer club, we don't sell alcohol. We try and keep our fees to a minimum, that kind of thing. And we do have some trepidation about what the costs might be on the club every 10 years to come up with a significant contribution to that capital cost to replacement of the synthetic. So that's something, and I guess that, and also the arrangements through the school through a joint use agreement, we don't know what that would look like at this stage, and I guess council doesn't know what that would look like either. So it's not that we're close to that idea, but I guess we would need to have more information to commit to that as well. Yeah.
All right, I think we're good. Does anyone else in the gallery wish to speak? No? All right, then can I have a motion to resume standing orders, please? Fantastic, seconded. And all in favour? All right, standing orders are resumed. At item 7, we have petitions and letters. There are nil. At item 8, we have committee reports. Councillor Hayden.
Yeah, I'll move. Pardon me. That council Notes the confidential audit and risk committee meeting minutes for the meeting held 27 May 2025.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Driscoll, thank you. All in favour? That's all of us. Thank you very much. Motion carried. All right, we'll move on to 9, officers' reports, 9.1, community, and 9.1.1, Mount Alexander Shire Youth Plan 2025 to 2028. Councillor Maddock, can you introduce this item, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This report is for a decision. The purpose of this report is to present to councillors the Mount Alexander Shire Youth Plan 2025 to 2028 for adoption. The aim of the plan is to provide a future vision and strategic direction for how to best develop, coordinate and deliver services, programs and partnership activities in the Shire for young people aged 12 to 25 years. The plan reflects the feedback received from young people aged 12 to 12 to 25 years, their families, local service providers, through conversations, surveys and forums from May 2024 to February 2025. The recommendation, so I'd like to move that Council adopts the Mount Alexander Shire Youth Plan 2025 to 2029.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do I have a seconder? Oh, was there a motion? Sorry. I was bantering with the CEO in the background there.
Yeah, there was.
And I wasn't fully
The
paying
motion,
attention.
do you want me to read it out?
Please.
The motion is that Council adopts the Mount Alexander Shire Youth Plan 2025 to
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Cordy. Is there any opposition? No. Then Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Firstly, a big thank you to everyone who was involved in here. Director Knight, is she online?
I should have mentioned
She-
earlier, our third director is joining us on the virtually. So Director Knight is also here in the background and hopefully can hear what we're saying.
So big thanks to Director Knight, the Inclusive Communities Coordinator, Shana Corpley, Council's Youth Development Team, Youth Advisory Group, who co-designed this plan and led a youth forum with over 60 local young people. We have 2,300 young people in the Shire aged 12 to 25. That's about 11.5%. They need support at least as much as anybody else here. Young people face a lot of challenges. Studying and entering the workforce and adulthood can be really tricky. It's not always smooth sailing. I know this because I used to be young and I've also been an educator, so I've worked in this space quite a lot. But increasing many life is hard. We need to give our young people the best start possible. I'm heartened that this plan will be steered by the I practiced the pronunciation of this and now I've lost it. The Balorch Children and Youth Network, who will act as a steering group for the implementation of the plan and includes members from Castlemaine Secondary College, Dalkaya Health, Goldfields Library, Nelderung, School Focused Youth Services, Vic Police, Goldfields Local Learning and Employment Network, Anglicare, Victorian Department of Education, Loddon Mallee Public Health Unit, Castlemaine Community House, Bendigo Health, Child and Adolescent Maternal Health Service, and local primary school. So really great I feel like everyone's in that, which is awesome. I'm proud that in developing this plan, as well as the youth forum with 60 participants, we had 339 young people complete surveys, 71 parents, carers completing surveys, 25 service providers completing surveys, and 3 workshops with Balorch Children and Youth Network. They've identified some really strong priorities, which I'm really supportive of. That our youth be healthy and well, safe and secure, and included and celebrated. I'm happy to move this plan for adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Speak now, Mayor. Look, I'd commend this youth plan to the community, and I'd certainly follow up on Councillor Maddox's comments. The team that put it together, it's a great effort, and the amount of consultation and collaboration with the youth and the youth advisory group. It's like a lot of these sort of reports, it's got a very nice message from the Mayor and the CEO in there, but it's got lots of interesting information there, particularly around the issues facing youth of today. And yeah, I commend the report to the community and congratulate the people that have put it together. Basically, it's all about engagement and communication and striving to provide the best possible services for that cohort. So well done, all involved. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Does any other councillor wish to speak to this item? No? Then back to you, Councillor Maddock. You have a right of reply.
That's fine. Thanks, Mayor.
No worries. I will then put the motion. All in favour? That's all of us. Motion is carried. And with that, we have our first youth plan. And I'm going to take a moment to speak to this because I'm very, very excited about it. And I think for me, it really goes back to, like, I know that we were all young people once, and that's, you know, it's part of life, an interesting part of life. I feel like I was a young person not that long ago. In fact, sometimes I still feel like I'm 15. And 15-year-old Rosie grew up here and primarily hung out in Victory Park, doing pretty naughty things, honestly, and not having a great time of it. And I remember being in Victory Park with my friends at about 15 and joking that one day I would be the mayor and I would make things better for young people. And at some point in my life, that dream translated into me sitting here being the mayor and getting to speak to what is our first youth plan, which is kind of incredible to me because when I talk to young people, particularly, you know, teenagers who are really having a pretty rough time of it right now, so many of the problems are the same problems that I had when I was their age. There are so many things that have not changed since I was a teenager, but then there's also a bunch of new things that are getting them in these different ways, like vaping, which is a massive problem, particularly for our young people, and just very, very out of control. I think the things that stand out for me, and I will be so thrilled if we were able to achieve this. I said in my lifetime, I would like it to be sooner than that, but having a dedicated youth space would be incredible. And I remember as a young person, I wasn't on the youth advisory group because I was just not able to be that kind of leader at the time, but I was peripheral to it. And I remember, so this is, 17, 18 years ago, there was talk then of developing a youth space. Obviously, it hasn't fully come to fruition. We obviously have some beautiful programs that we run out of Community House, and YAG meets in here on Wednesday afternoons, and gee, they're great. The YAG members are just such phenomenal human beings, and they're just, they give me a lot of hope, honestly, because I can see how much they care about each other, how much they care about the world, and it's very, very, it gives me a lot of hope when I spend time with them. For me, and it's been identified by the young people themselves, by their parents, by service providers, that having a dedicated youth space, somewhere where they could be safe, somewhere that's free, where they can hang out, preferably inside, that they feel like they have some ownership over, would just be so game-changing for some of them, I think. Some of the other big issues that came up, and this is kind of across the board, so from adults and young people, alcohol and other drugs, including vaping, huge problem for a lot of young people. And there are not services here and not services really anywhere close that can help young people who are having substance use issues. We still know so little about the negative effects of vaping. And yet, I've taken vapes off kids young as 11. It's prevalent. Things around body image. Again, this was, all of this stuff has been around for a long time, but I think social media and the internet and the way that we all have devices is really compounding these things, similarly to bullying, similarly to mental health problems. I think another big one that has been identified very, very strongly through our young people is what is really gendered violence and misogyny. A lot of our young women are experiencing that real rearing up as a backlash against the movement that is trying to make equity and equality between genders more achievable. This has come up so frequently. And also our young men struggling to understand what masculinity means, struggling to understand how to be a man in a world that is giving us a lot more options now for what we want to do with our lives. And the last one, which I think is so interesting, that is being identified by young people, is the cost of living crisis. So it's not just affecting adults; it's trickling down to our children, and our kids and young people are experiencing the cost of living pressures as well. And I think this is all captured so perfectly in this plan that I can see the young people's voices all the way through it. It's made me feel very excited, and to me feels like a bit of a hallelujah moment to have this youth plan guiding what I think will be some really, hopefully, powerful things. And I do note that doing the feasibility, which is the first step of achieving a youth space, is one of the actions in here. And I'm going to pursue that relentlessly, because that is something that I think will make some real differences to the young people who live here. Sorry to go on a little bit. I'm really excited. Last thing, obviously, councillors have already mentioned Director Knight and Alana, but Shana, Shannon and Jody are the council officers in that team who held this and drove this and empowered young people to come forward. And obviously all our YAG and Freezer members who really went above and beyond to get other young people to engage to shape this. So I'm so excited, and I'm really feeling like a bit of a full circle moment for me. And yeah, thank you for endorsing it. And I'm so excited to have a youth plan. I'll stop talking about this now, and we'll move on to 9.1.2. Bit of a shift, but still in the same realms potentially. It's our playground renewal plan. And I'm going to ask Councillor Walker, could you introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and I think you are correct. We've just adopted the youth plan. This is for people prior to they get to their youth. An action in the council plan has been to develop a playground renewal plan to guide council's future investment in our 29 playgrounds. So to deliver on this action, council officers have worked with consultants to develop a playground renewal plan. I'll particularly give a nod to the Director of Infrastructure and Development, Michael Anea, and the Active Community Team Leader, Troy Lyons, who has worked particularly hard on this. Through the process, it became evident that they needed to renew and reclassify council's playground hierarchy and the development of levels of service which were required so that they could have a framework to make decisions around the development of playground renewal. I also emphasise this is the renewal of existing playgrounds. It does not relate to any new playgrounds that council could build in the future. The following documents have been developed in consultation with relevant council business units. This is the playground hierarchy and levels of service and the playground renewal plan. And the purpose of this report is for council to adopt those documents. So the recommendation is, or the motion is, that council 1 adopts the playground hierarchy and levels of service document, and 2 notes the playground renewal plan and the implementation program, which will guide spending of council's annual playground renewal budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Councillor Maltby, thank you. Is there any opposition? No. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak to your motion?
As I mentioned, council has 29 existing playgrounds. This motion does not relate to any new playgrounds that are being constructed, for example, as in Friarstown, or could be constructed. 25 of those are public accessible and range in size and play provisions located within gardens, park, recreation reserves, etc. One of the initial tasks in undertaking the renewal plan was to review and update the playground hierarchy, and there was a workshop held with council of officers from a range of teams that have a linkage to the playground. And they've developed 3 categories: municipal, district, local. There's also been a development of a new local category. So now there are 4 categories: municipal, district, local 1 and local 2, with allocations to the various types of users for that. In the level of service, in reviewing it, criteria features for the playground include things such as their location and purpose, the design, the landscaping, play items, age groups that would use it, natural play access, litter bins, toilets, shades, soft fall, ancillary facilities, and protective fencing. And a performance assessment of the Shire's playgrounds undertaken in 2021 showed that almost half, 40%, were assessed as average quality, 32 assessed as poor or very poor, and only 20% were as good or very good, which is the reason for the need to develop the renewal plan. So I won't go through it in great detail, but essentially this issues the reasons that playgrounds should be renewed. It's sort of like a depreciation. It's time to renew it. It's taking into account shifting technology, also shifting nature of users and the types of people, young people, their requirements and needs as playgrounds come up for renewal. So it's something that will influence council budgets each year that will come forward in a prepared way as to how they would be renewed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak?
Thank you. This is a very good step forward, and in recent years, council has included an annual playground renewal allocation in the budget, and it's resulted in upgrades at West End, the Sir Morrissey Reserve, the Harcourt Rec Reserve, Newstead Memorial Park, and the Norwood Hill Recreation Reserve. And as we continue, we will keep doing that and maybe build some new ones as well.
Who knows? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, playgrounds are a fantastic thing that we get involved in at council, and we've really delivered some wonderful playgrounds. I'd commend the work that our staff and consultant team have done on this report. It's very comprehensive, and it really sets a basis for sound planning going forward. In terms of our achievements with the development of new playgrounds in recent years, some of them are fantastic, and well, they're all fantastic, the ones we've built, and it really gives you a sense of pride when you see families with young kids and parents and grandparents using those facilities, and it's truly wonderful what we've achieved so far, but a lot more to do, and this document sets the way forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm sure every councillor would like all 29 playgrounds to be updated, but unfortunately, as with everything, it's all about the funds. So we're doing the best we can, and this is as Councillor Walker said, it's a priority list, and it's the best we can do at the moment. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, councillor. Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a really big fan of the playgrounds in our Shire, and I've spent a lot of time at them over the last 5 years. And just sort of highlight, like, it's not just for the kids as well. Like, the kids are always there with adults, and those adults are often socialising as well. So you're getting double the value. I think this is very useful. Having a hierarchy is very useful. It's very hard to work out and understand just how to best equitably spend our limited resources, and they are really limited. I guess I just wanted to underline something that's sort of apparent for me, that when we're spending money renewing playgrounds, if we're spending money on playgrounds, I'm sure we'd all want the best bang for our buck in the spending of that money. And I just note that the report, I've lost my thing, sorry, I had it all printed, is calling for an analysis of needs in the Shire in relation to new playgrounds. So it doesn't cover that, it's not giving us advice on that, but it's underlining that that'd be useful to have. And I think when we're thinking about spending money on playgrounds and we want to make the most equitable decision, we need to know where those service gaps are, and if our money would be better spent building a new playground, fulfilling a service gap, than renewing one that already exists. And I say that as the councillor for the Wesley Hill area, who I know are crying out for a playground and would probably be happy to receive any of the decommissioned ones from anywhere else as just something to start with. So I think, come budget time next year, or, hopefully we can get something moving faster as far as that needs analysis, but we should either be looking to fund that needs analysis or already have that and be taking them into consideration alongside this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Nope. Then back to councillor Walker. You've got a right of reply.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
That's okay. I'll put the motion then. All in favour? Fantastic. Motion carried. And I think just to pick up on what everyone else has said, this document is really to guide how we pick which playground will be renewed next, because we do have a lot. They are spread across the entire Shire. Though, as Councillor Matic has said, there are gaps. I would say we have a huge number of playgrounds, existing playgrounds to look after already. And we know from, I think the one that for me always springs to mind the most, because I've kind of been along its journey with it, is the Norwood Hill Playground, which through renewal, there already was a playground there. It was pretty, it wasn't very nice. It didn't make people feel like they wanted to go there. It didn't make people feel, people didn't feel good being in that space. And over the last, we did, a whole heap of consultation, and we were also very, very lucky and very, very skilled in getting a lot of grant funding to activate different aspects of it. And it is just such an incredible space now, and what it has done for that area and what it means to the people who visit it and who, travel often quite long distance to have parties there and to hang out with their kids and their families. I think that's when you can tell renewal is really working, because we've taken what was a playground, but not one that people felt particularly good at, and changed it into a space that feels, it feels special. People feel like, oh, we've got this special thing now in Norwood Hill, which never really got anything nice. And I think that's so wonderful. So absolutely thank you to the team, Director Ania and Karen and Troy in Active Communities, I think that's what it's called, who have just put such a lot of love into this and continue to strive for really good outcomes playground-wise, to the excitement of our many, many young people. Okay, we're up to 9.1.3. This is a petition response to expansion of speed limit reductions on Harmony Way. And I'm going to ask Councillor Cordy to introduce this item, please.
Thanks, Mayor. In April 2024, Council received a petition requesting speed zone changes along Harmony Way between the Harcourt Township and McIver Road. This request was in part to improve traffic exiting the Twyford Street Harmony Way intersection. The results of the investigation were presented at the meeting of Council 18th of June 2024. The outcome of the investigation did not support the requested changes to the current speed zone. Council noted the original recommendations and moved that additional community consultation be undertaken on an alternative to introduce an 80 km/h speed zone extending from the existing 60 km/h speed zone out to the end of the overtaking lane north of the intersection at Garshes Road. The outcome of the community consultation was limited support for the proposed speed changes, although alternative options were shared by the community. This report presents the findings of the consultation and also responds to a second petition received during the consultation period objecting to the proposed speed zone changes. And I would move the motion as printed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. And any opposition? No. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to the motion?
So this is something, like, I grew up in Harcourt, and I spent a lot of time travelling on Harmony Way all of my life. and so it was very, very close to my heart. And I was a little bit disappointed. I must say, I was a little bit disappointed that the community sentiment was against making the changes that the original petitioners had requested. And you know, when you think of, there's a lot in the report that talks about speed, and one thing that I thought, knowing this was coming up, I was listening to the ABC Wireless the other day, and the presenter was talking about asking people to phone in with tips for young drivers, and lots of ideas for young drivers, but for me, the best tip you can give a young driver, or best couple of tips, and I'm going to share them with you. But one is drive to the conditions. The second one is make allowance for other drivers to make mistakes. And you know, that's what this is all about. It's about the community. They see near misses at Twyford Street, and they're wanting to change. And when we spoke to the broader community, the numbers didn't support making the change, but I know there's still the speed's the factor, and yeah, so really understand the report. I feel for the petitioners; they're not getting the change that they wanted. But bottom line is, we've all need to drive to the conditions. That's it for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Sorry, I lost my spot. Councillor Hayden, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now, thanks.
No
Mayor.
worries.
Pardon me. Yeah, just a couple of points from me. Firstly, this is a very topical issue, not just in our shire, but around the state and no doubt around the country, the issue of local speed limits. Notwithstanding the difficulties that council has in setting speed limits on its own, right? It's not always up to us. I like Councillor Cordy. I'm very familiar with that section of Harmony Way, having spent a lot of my youth down in Faraday, and I can sympathise with the views of those local residents who want to see this speed reduction. But to come back to the process that we went about deliberating on this, council did engage with the community quite extensively through social media, through newspaper ads, through flyers, posters, directly emailing community groups, conducting an in-person session, as well as conducting a survey on the SHAPE Mount Alexander website. And from that SHAPE survey, a total of 257 respondents or responses were received to the question, do you support the proposed speed reduction? Of which 78 or 30% were in favour, and 70% or 179 were opposed. I don't think this is the first time we're going to visit this issue of the speed on a road such as Harmony Way. Of course, many of the arterial roads in the Shire, certainly around Castlemaine, are 80 kilometres per hour, and those reductions that occurred, 10, 15 years ago, are fairly well supported across the Shire now. And it's I guess the point here is that, as Councillor Cordy said, that in some ways a blanket changing of the regulation or changing of the speed limit is one approach to this. I think Councillor Cordy's advice is sage, though, Mayor. I think if we drive to the conditions and make allowances for other drivers' mistakes, we can all be a lot safer as a community. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Nope. Councillor Cordy, you've got a right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I appreciate the work our staff have done. Like, I was present when we had the consultation at the bowling club, and there's a lot of interest in these matters. But in terms of community engagement, it's well worthwhile, and it was carried out extensively on this matter. So, yep, no change at this point in time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, everyone. I'll now put the motion. All in favour and opposed? I'm doing it. Motion still carries though. Yeah, I think great advice there, Tony. It's always good to get some road tips. I think more and more people should we should tell everyone, because we get an awful lot of concerns around traffic, particularly speed. Speed is probably the number one thing that we get concerns about, and it can be frightening. It can cause hurt to other people, and it can just be a really scary thing also when other drivers are acting unpredictably. But I think the council has a part in this. Obviously we do. The police have a part in it as well. But I'm more and more getting sure that actually it's people, isn't it? People should just not drive so fast. And I think there needs to be a bit more accountability on people themselves to just kind of go, it is not all about me. I should drive more safely. But I actually don't know how we achieve that. So we'll keep doing what we can at our end. All right. So I guess on a similar vein here, another petition response at 9.1.4. This is a request for traffic calming measures on Farron Street, Castlemaine. And I'm going to get Councillor Maltby to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council received a petition from community members in Farron Street requesting traffic calming measures on the 22nd of March 2025. The key concerns raised by the community include excessive speed, increased traffic volumes, dust levels and pedestrian safety. Council acknowledged the petition at its meeting on the 15th of April 2025 and requested a report on the matter at a future meeting of Council. The purpose of this report is to provide the outcomes of the investigation undertaken regarding the issues raised along Farron Street and if traffic calming measures are required. The findings of the investigation identify relatively low traffic volumes and good speed limit compliance along Farron Street with no accident history. The report recommends undertaking several low-cost speed signage improvements and use of Council's variable message speed trailer for motorist education. I'll move one that Council endorses Council officers seeking approval from the Department of Transport and Planning to install 50 kilometre static signage at either end of the unsealed section of Farron Street, and 2, supports the temporary installation of Council's variable message speed trailer to educate motorists of their speed along Farron Street.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Driscoll, thank you. Is there any opposition? All right. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you. From the traffic data provided, it's evident there is generally good compliance with the existing speed limit, 50 kilometres per hour, with 85% of vehicles travelling below 44 kilometres per hour. In relation to increased traffic volumes, the counts indicate a marginal decrease in volume over the last 11 years and since the first count in 2014. On the 14th of February 2014, the vehicle count over 7 days was 637 and 85% of the speed was 43 kilometres an hour. On the 16th of October 2023, 636 vehicles over 8 days at 44 kilometres per hour. On the 21st of May this year, 574 vehicle count over 8 days at 43 kilometres an hour. So whilst I can appreciate the residents saying there's an issue, the research shows that, yes, maybe some signage is needed, but reducing the speed limit is not going to fix the issue.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak now or reserve your right? No worries. Councillor Walker or Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak? Councillor Maddock.
So, although I hope not, I may be one of the drivers who's referred to in this petition because my route to the soccer pitch in Chewton is Collies Road and has been until I received the petition to also use Ferrens Street coming off Collies Road to get onto the highway, and it's since receiving the petition, I always drove slowly, although I've never hit a roo in this shire, but the closest I've ever come was on Ferrens Street, and it was a massive roo. It's also I believe it's the only road in that precinct that's unsealed. Sealed roads are much safer, stopping times are better. It's my view, and I'm sure echoing the petitioners, that the most ideal route off Collies Road is down one of the other bitumen roads, not on Ferrens Street. It's not particularly that the data shows we have a massive problem that needs a dramatic intervention here, but calming traffic where it's got no adverse effects can only be a positive thing. So calming traffic in this area on this street would encourage but not demand a slight diversion of traffic on other roads and move traffic off what is not an ideal road to be using as a thoroughfare. And now just maybe it's a bit of a technicality, but I think it's really important we get this right. I'll foreshadow that I've got another motion prepared asking for a speed reduction to 40 kilometres. If councillors don't support that, and I respect that, it's really important that we don't let this motion through. It's calling for 50-kilometre signs at either end of a road where 85% of drivers are doing less than 44. The petitioners and myself are concerned that by putting 50-kilometre signs up there, that it might have the adverse effect of actually increasing the average speed overall. So while I appreciate, and I'm sure the petitioners appreciate, the good intentions of that, the petitioners are asking for something positive for them. We shouldn't be going backwards. So if you don't support my next motion for a reduction to 40k, I please ask that you also don't support this one, and that we do nothing rather than what's being proposed in this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of driving lessons from me to follow on from Councillor Cordy's very erudite comments, and it came out of the campaign to have speed limits reduced along Duke Street, Pyrenees Highway Main Road, where I discovered a science called motor normativity, and actually academic studies in Australia and all over the world. And what it refers to is an unconscious cognitive bias that particularly affects men, where they think they're above average drivers and for them the road rules are flexible. It also particularly affects men who've got stickers on their cars, so it's people like me who seem to think that they can bend the rules and be flexible with them. While I acknowledge that the data says, and I don't read too much into how many cars used it 11 years ago and now, you take it again in 6 months' time, you could get a different, the numbers are so close, it doesn't matter. Certainly acknowledging that while most people, 85%, are doing 44, there is clearly a percentage that are not doing it. And while there hasn't been an accident to date, I'm one of those who are of the viewpoint that don't wait until it happens, acts beforehand. It clearly is, given there's not many cars using that road, not so difficult to put some restrictions in that would appease the residents who are ratepayers along that road. That I think there is salience in the point that if you put up a 50-kilometre sign, people who are currently driving slower will instinctively start to speed up, which then in itself creates a problem. I don't think there's grounds to tar the road, which actually could make the problem worse. So, and from my involvement in the 50-kilometre campaign a bit over a year ago, what also came through is there is a general trend amongst traffic departments in the Western world to be lowering speed limits. In part, that's been a reflection to what we all know has been some post-COVID anger going on, but in part a recognition that slower speeds generally are safer, and that small change can be quite significant for human life. Given this is not a major thoroughfare, I am aligned with Councillor Maddock's position that I think to have a 40-kilometre thing makes a lot of sense. I can see where the officers are coming from. Sort of a 50k perhaps is a bit easier to get through with the Department of Transport, but I certainly think we should request the lower speed limit. It can't be too much to ask for cars to do that, and signage for them to slow down. Otherwise, they can use other roads. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Does anyone else wish to speak on this matter? No. Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, there's good speed adherence in that street. The vehicles are travelling, I think, average of 44 kilometres. The volume of traffic is within expectations. The traffic count since 2014 has come down. And there's a thing that the Department of Transport use, which is called continuity, which is they look at around the different streets in the area. And my understanding, there's no other streets around at 40% at 40 kilometres, which creates challenges and inconsistency for drivers, in my opinion. So I'm happy with the recommendation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Maltby, you've got a right of reply.
Thank you. Couple of things. The current unsealed part of Farron Street is approximately only 400 metres long. The other matter, as Councillor Driscoll says, you can make that part of Farron Street 40 kilometres, but all the other areas around are going to be 50. There has been no recording of accidents in the last years, and there hasn't been very many complaints to the Shire about the issue. There's no recording of people complaining on this report. Councillor Maddox could be right. We shouldn't do anything at all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, with all that said, I will put the motion. All in favour and opposed? All right, so that motion is lost. Does anyone have another motion they would like to put forward at this time? Councillor Maddock.
I do. Thank you, Mayor. I propose that Council request council officers to submit a speed zone reduction request to the Department of Transport and Planning to reduce the speed limit for the unsealed section of Farron Street from 50 kilometres an hour to 40 kilometres an hour and install 40 kilometres an hour static signage at either end of the unsealed section of Farron Street. 2, request council officers to install local traffic only static signage at either end of the unsealed section of Farron Street. 3, supports the temporary installation of council's variable message speed trailer to educate motorists of their speed along Farron Street.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Walker, thank you. Is there any opposition? I thought there might be. All right, Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and I've covered a few of the points already. I think, and I've got a lot of sympathy to the arguments coming from the other side of the room, but perhaps not in this instance. The idea of inconsistency. So Farron Street, the unsealed section of Farron Street is inconsistent with the rest of the area. It's the only unsealed section. It looks visibly different and would expect drivers to drive differently on it because of that. I think to have that as the only 40 section because of that does not make it the issues with inconsistency will not be brought up. The issues with inconsistency is you feel like it's a 50k zone, but when actually it's 40. Whereas when you come off those sealed roads, you're expecting a change in the conditions. So I think while generally they might be good arguments in this instance, I don't see it as a problem. Also, and it's just something that I've picked up from the ALGA a conference from a road risk assessing expert for roads, that you can't rely on accident and near missing data to make decisions, particularly when they're low volume roads. Those sorts of instances don't turn up frequently enough to create reliable information. And this person actually made the point of, if there are, that may be a site that you're less likely to have one, because if they're going to have one in every 1,000 and you've had one, you're probably not going to get it. So I think that we don't have those near misses recorded. Although I've just reported my near miss with a kangaroo on Farron Street, and there is a herd of apparently at least 50 who live there almost permanently next to Farron Street. It shouldn't be taken as a reason not to do this. And I think in council, we're here to deliver good outcomes for our community. The primary people this affects are the residents of Farron Street. This isn't going to affect nearly anyone else. If it is, it's affecting people like me who live on Collies Road, and I fully support this. It is such a minor change to my habits. I'd also happily keep using Farron Street at 40 kilometres an hour if I really felt the need to take that route. So I really see the speed reduction is we've got everything to gain by doing this, and we really don't have much to lose. So I really hope that it can be supported. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve, Mayor.
No worries. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Maltby.
Sorry. Listening to Councillor Maddox, he would suggest that we should seal the 400 square metres, and that will cost approximately $550,000.
Could I do a point of order clarification? I didn't ask for that.
You mentioned that it could be sealed.
No, I think that was investigated by the officers, but I haven't mentioned the sealing.
You did.
No, I didn't.
All right. We're not going to just have an argument though. Point of order accepted. Please continue.
So to solve the real issue, you would seal it at $550,000. Council does not have that money, and there's other roads that need sealing first. To reduce the speed limit by 10 kilometres, the figures here already prove that you don't need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone else wish to speak? I think it's you, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, I think the point Councillor Maddox was making was it was the only unsealed section of road, and I think it's recognised that if that section was to be sealed, it would in fact make the problem worse. The cars would go faster on it because it is a sealed road. That as it is an unsealed road, it stands out from the other roads around it, which is the issue as to why reducing it to 40 kilometres per hour is more justifiable, given it, and that it should remain an unsealed road. Therefore, it's not an extra cost on council. Therefore, we wouldn't be having people coming a few months after the road was sealed saying, well, the traffic's now doing 70 or 80. if the evidence is that most cars are doing 44, then to make it a 40 kilometre is not a big deal. It's not going to affect those 85%. It's just those few who are driving excessively need to be reduced. And I think it is appropriate to be pursuing the possibility of getting it down to 40 kilometres per hour. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Councillor Maddock, you've got a right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to highlight as well that in these discussions, and maybe not tabled in the petition, are lots of ideas for how to calm roads, including closing it at one end, making it one way, narrowing the road, putting obstacles in at the entrances to slow down cars. All of these have really they're all and sealing the road as well. They're all very expensive options for achieving a similar thing, which is what's being proposed here. I think what the petitioners are coming to us with is actually a very humble, considered, and it's a compromised and realistic position. It will not cost our organisation much to apply for this speed limit reduction. It'll not cost the community much to have these speed limit reduction. I think it's a really appropriate and considered ask that's been asked in a very appropriate and measured way. And just to echo what Councillor Walker's saying, this is what the drivers are saying is the safe speed. They're all doing around 40 kilometres an hour. And I'll tell you, 50 is too fast. It's dangerous. That's when you hit roofs. That's when you don't feel comfortable to let your kids play out on the nature strip. If we can just calm that 15% of drivers who are doing over 44 kilometres, and we can bring a few Ks down from the ones who are doing the 44, I think we've got a really positive outcome here. And I think it's an easy and affordable solution for us. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor, and thank you, everyone. I'll now put this motion. All in favour and opposed. Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. What do I want to say? I want to say a couple of things, I guess, at the end. I mean, I guess one thing I'd like to make really, really clear is, and we know this obviously, and I hope everyone knows this, we can apply for this. It does not mean that Department of Transport and Planning will say yes. They could very well not say yes, and that will be completely out of our hands, but we can apply and we can ask. I guess the other thing that I think about quite a bit around speed, because we really do get a lot of speed complaints. And I think what I have noticed, and from speaking to police who monitor speed, and for others who do this as part of their jobs, people who speed in a 50 kilometre zone are still likely going to speed in a 40 kilometre zone. I just want to bring it back to this, just for me personally, the real problem here is that people are speeding. And I think that is a much bigger problem than road conditions and speed signs. I think the real problem is that there are an awful lot of people who speed, and that is something, I don't know, that's something that is partially out of council's hands. So while this is a positive outcome for the residents who've submitted this petition, I guess I want to just remind everyone, including myself, that this is only part of the problem, and that there's other components to this as well. And while we can try here, we may not be successful. And I think that there's other components of these problems around speeding drivers that need to be taken into consideration too. And council, unfortunately, does not have the power to compel people not to speed. So it's about, I guess it's a holistic approach that we need to be taking as a community. All right, moving on again, and we're up to 9.2 environment, 9.2.1, which is, excuse me, streetscape landscape design for Barker Street and Forest Street, Castlemaine. And I'm going to go to Councillor Hayden, who is very excited to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I am. Pardon me. The purpose of this report is to present the streetscape landscape design for Barker Street and Forest Street, Castlemaine for adoption. The streetscape landscape design is a key priority of the Castlemaine Streetscape Plan and Design Standards from 2020, recognising that the streetscapes of Barker and Forest Streets should present as grand entrances through the commercial centre of Castlemaine. When implemented, the streetscape landscape design will contribute to an enhancement of the function and amenity of the Barker and Forest streetscapes. I move that Council adopts the streetscape landscape design for Barker Street and Forest Street, Castlemaine.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Is there any opposition? No, then back to you, Councillor Hayden, to speak to your motion.
Thanks, Mayor. It really is an exciting project. Barker Street and Forest Streets, key highway thoroughfares through Castlemaine, are subject to change and development. We've all seen significant development along Forest Street, not just the eastern end with the new supermarket development, but also down between Hargraves and Barker Street as well. I'm particularly, so this is a very comprehensive plan, and I'm indebted to the Director of Infrastructure and Development, Michael Annear, and Victoria Barrett, Coordinator of Parks and Open Space, for their work and their team's work on bringing this together over some time. A few points I'd like to make here. I guess the main reason I'm so enthusiastic about this is it starts to address the issue of the appearance and the amenity of that section of Forest Street between Urquhart and Hargrave Street. I think this is a really critical action for council to be engaged in now that we have the new supermarket, now that we have a lot of people doing their shopping at Urquhart Street, and we really need to try and enhance the amenity of Forest Street so more people will shop both in Mostyn Street, Hargrave Street, Barker Street, as well as the new supermarket development. This is a really great first stage, and I note that the first stage of this development is to commence work on Forest Street, and that section from Urquhart to Hargraves and then down to Barker Street. In the summary, we know that we're advised that the future landscape implementation is scheduled to be undertaken over 3 years, commencing in this financial year of 25-26 with, as I said, that section of Forest Street, and is subject to funding by way of future budget submissions, so from us, from ratepayers, and or external grant funding opportunities. I'm no expert on grant writing, but I am confident that this is exactly the kind of project that could well indeed attract external grant funding opportunities. These two thoroughfares through Castlemaine are critically important to the appearance of our beautiful town. I've had more comments than I could number from businesses and residents on those streets, and also on Mostyn Street, also on Littleton, Hargrave Street, about the need for us to do more to try and beautify the town centre, not just to improve the appearance of our town centre, but also to improve the paving and the landscaping, the street furniture, and so on. I encourage councillors to look through the report here. You'll see there's quite extensive plans for hard landscaping as well as plantings. A range of native and non-native elements are proposed. I note too that the report also features some ideas which perhaps might be novel to Castlemaine, but are not anything new to other heritage towns, such as the uplighting of heritage building facades. And listed here, we've got the Castlemaine Post Office, the Falder Watson Hall, Castlemaine Library, and the former State Savings Bank building as 4 candidates for street lighting. Also note through the engagement with Jara and with Uncle Rick Nelson, the idea of installing a directional sign to indicate the direction and distance to other local Aboriginal clans. And this would be a real first for our town. We all know we live on Jara country, that we live on the land of people who speak Dja Dja Wurrung, and most people around Victoria would know the name of that country that they live on. Very few of us are actually aware of the clans, the clan names, the Galgal Gunditj, the Galgal Golok, and so on. And I think this proposal by Uncle Rick to install the directional sign, possibly in the style of those wonderful poles up at Bort, maybe not, on the corner of Forest and Barker. This would be a really enlivening element to add to that corner. Oh, and I also draw attention to the diversity, the interesting diversity of plants which have been suggested to be planted along the median strips of both Barker and Forest Streets. Of course, both of those streets are Vic roads or DTP roads, so this plan is very much being worked in conjunction with what that state government agency will allow. And I think if we look at the schedule of works over the 3 years, it's a very realistic plan. I think it's an affordable plan, and I think it goes a long way to trying to better represent our beautiful built and natural environment in the heart of central Castlemaine. So I thoroughly recommend this report and plan to Council. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Yeah, I'll speak now. Thank
No
you, Mayor.
worries.
I'm also quite excited about this as well. I think planting trees and planting plants is something that's always going to get me excited. I might be more excited if they're natives, but I also get the challenges of finding suitable species for these sorts of situations. So, and I think there's definitely advantages to the European deciduous trees for streetscaping, providing really good shade cover when we need it most, reducing heat island effect, and then dropping their leaves and letting the light through when we need it the most. So I think while part of me goes, oh, this is an opportunity for potential habitat, I'm quite comfortable with the species selected. I have some concerns about it restricting pedestrian crossing mid-block on pretty much all the areas where it is, and potentially creating new safety hazards where it becomes harder to cross medium strips. So pedestrians attempting to cross a heavily planted medium strip. I'd love to see formalised pedestrian crossings mid-block in every one of those blocks to allow for sort of easier flow of pedestrian traffic from both sides of all those streets. It's and noting that it's often safer for a pedestrian to cross mid-block than at an intersection because there's much less happening. You've got two directions of traffic. You don't have people turning and failing to give way and these kinds of things. I understand that there's some interest from officers in investigating at least one option for this. So I have confidence, even if this is adopted, it leaves the window open for establishing new formal pedestrian crossings as we move forwards. So yeah, I'm really happy to support this. I think it's exciting. I think it's going to be good for the local businesses, and it's going to greatly improve the amenity of our shopping district. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I think it's a good report. The only thing I'd suggest is one of the things that when Christmas comes around, a lot of times we get inundated with we need more Christmas lights and things like that and decorations in town. And one of the things that keeps us from doing that sometimes is the cost of the $10,000 or whatever it is for us to use the poles. So it might be a good idea or potential opportunity to put some sort of poles or structure there that we could actually, we actually control and own, so that we can put the decorations up ourselves without that $10,000 cost. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Does anyone else wish to speak? Back to you then, Councillor Hayden. You've got a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor. And it's a great idea, Councillor Driscoll. Might be easy to get them up on our own streets than DTP roads, but you're right. I remember as a kid we had rather garish but very jolly Christmas buntings up Barker Street and Forest Street too. I remember when those gum trees used to be in the median strip up near Urquhart Street. Just to return to Councillor Maddock's excellent point about the value of trees and shade, and I of course, this is the beauty of deciduous trees. There are Australian deciduous trees. They are extant. But the red maples that are proposed, I think, are suitable. One point about the crossings, I take your point, Councillor Maddock, about that you find some of those mid-intersection crossing points safer. I don't share that, and I actually do think that crossing at the traffic lights is far safer under all circumstances, notwithstanding the rogue drivers who sometimes miss red lights and so on. So it's a good point you make, but we agree to disagree on that point. Also noting that those informal mid-block crossing points, and we might think about the one kind of near Domino's Pizza as an example, they are not sanctioned or supported or legal by DTP. So I take your point that in the future it would indeed be good to try and work towards lobbying DTP to allow us to have more formal crossing points at those places where people want to cross, such as that extension of Frederick Street. And on the topic of, as I mentioned, Frederick Street, of course, I failed to mention, Mayor, that this ties in beautifully with all the works that are about to commence soon out here on Frederick Street and Mechanics Lane. So really, if we think about a bird's eye view of central Castlemaine over the next 3 years, we're going to see some tremendous and positive changes. So I thoroughly recommend this plan, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I will put the motion. All in favour? That's all of us. Motion is carried. And yeah, as people have said, I would say it is one thing that during my whole time on council, every listening post, every kind of community engagement thing I do, I have at least one, if not more, people come and kind of go, when are you going to make the main streets look nicer? And you know, it's challenging because it often costs a lot of money, and it's not our asset. But I think this would be particularly cooling those central areas that are very, concretey. I think it would be beautiful for that. And I know that many people, particularly those who frequent the Castlemaine CBD, would be thrilled if something like this is able to be funded and occur. So we'll do our best to attract that funding. All right, 9.2.2, soccer participation and facility feasibility consultation outcomes. I'm going to ask Councillor Driscoll to introduce this item, please.
Thanks, Mayor. Council officers are progressing with the delivery of a soccer participation and facility feasibility and assessment and concept project to identify the current and future needs for a soccer infrastructure, identify a suitable site for the new soccer facilities, and develop the concept plan for the preferred site. The purpose of this report is that we present to Council is that the outcomes from the targeted consultation with key stakeholders undertaken in February-March 2025, a recommendation of a preferred site and option for a soccer facility development for the Council consideration, and the outline of the next steps to progress selection of a preferred location and the commencement of a concept plan for future soccer facility developments. And Mayor, I'd like to move that Council 1 notes the long-term requirements for soccer facilities, 3 senior-sized pitches, 2 endorses the LC Palmer Field Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve as the preferred site for mid-term soccer facility development, with the requirement for soccer and cricket to share this site on a seasonal basis. 3, approves council officers to proceed to develop a detailed concept plan at LC Palmer Field, Wesley Hill, that maximises available space for soccer pitches, synthetic cricket wicket, turf cricket wicket, sports lighting, cricket nets, and associated off-pitch infrastructure, including change rooms, kiosk, club rooms, umpire rooms, and storage. And 4, notes that Chewton Soldiers Memorial Park will be retained for soccer use, and that future upgrades will be required at this site to ensure that it's compliant and fit for purpose. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, thank you. Is there any opposition? No. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, the Castlemaine Goldfields Footy Club Football Club is the Shire's only soccer club, and it's currently based in the Student Soldiers Memorial Park, which has been the club's home since the early 2000s. A single senior-sized soccer pitch at Student Soldiers Memorial is overused, and my understanding is that the Goldfields Football Club has 600 odd players. Council successfully received a grant in May 2024 from the Sports Recreational Victoria Local Infrastructure Fund, and the grant provided was $40,000, with council contributing $30,000, and the Goldfields Football Club providing $5,000, resulting in the total project for $75,000. There's three options at this stage on the table, and the development of those options that were consulted are: one, retain use of Chewton Soldiers Memorial Park and further develop soccer infrastructure on the Elsie Palmer Oval at Wesley Hill, the Recreational Reserve. Option two, retain the use of the Chewton Soldiers Memorial Park and develop soccer infrastructure on the main oval at the Castlemaine Secondary College, which has an option to include a synthetic soccer pitch. And three, relocate the Central Goldfields Football Club to the Wesley Hill Recreational Reserve to occupy Elsie Palmer Field, and the option to utilise the Doug Powell Oval as an overflow field, and relocate the North Castlemaine Cricket Club to Chewton Soccer's Memorial Park, retaining Doug Powell's Oval for AFL and cycling. I think the other councillors, we should support this because I think it's the best options that we have at the moment. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thank you, Mayor. Look, there's a great deal of work being done on this. I'd like to congratulate the Castlemaine Goldfields Football Club for their advocacy and in identifying and bringing it to our attention how badly needed these facilities are. They first presented at council several years ago, and to be honest, I was embarrassed when I realised the scale of the club and the numbers of players that they had, and the sheer number of games that they were trying to conduct on the Chewton Reserve, and you know, it was a real watershed moment for me. I thought at the time, this is critical. We've got to do something, and it's fantastic to see this report where we're moving forward to address what is, you know, a really we're way underinvested in soccer facilities, or you know, in the community, and I see this report setting the direction for the future, and I commend it to all councillors. But yeah, I was shocked when I realised the number of players that were trying to be accommodated at Chewton, and clearly the club, its success and the interest in soccer had way outgrown that facility. So this will be a fantastic project as it develops, and yeah, I'm very excited to support it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Maltby and then Councillor Walker.
Thanks, Mayor. Whilst I'm supporting the motion, I would hope that the council doesn't stop supporting the secondary college in their endeavours. It's very important that that continues.
Councillor Walker.
I'm going to talk similarly to both Councillor Cordy and Maltby. It's pretty clear, bit hard, football, soccer, it is the growing sport of the future. It's taken off, speaking as someone who grew up on Aussie rules and loves it. But there's no question that soccer is taking off because it's a much more gender inclusive sport. People of different genders can play together. It's a hell of a lot safer sport. You don't get the sorts of injuries that you do in other ones, and therefore we see it booming. And to work with them in developing this and taking it further, I think is of great benefit. I note that in the proposal, the cost of developing at Castlemaine Secondary College at this stage is way beyond our budget. I would certainly endorse what Councillor Maltby said. Let's keep on working with Castlemaine Secondary College, and maybe in the future there's chance for something to being there. I also note that Chewton Soldiers Memorial Park, while we are investing in it in the future, and we must invest in it in the future, this year we weren't able to fund the irrigation renewal. We have to do it in the next budget, but also noting it's not particularly good soil. It is a reclaimed creek, and so that's going to be problematic. But at the point where we're at this stage, with the resources we have, with the growing demand, I do think this is the very best possible outcome, but let's not cut off options at the secondary college in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Hayden.
Thanks, Mayor. And I concur with the comments of my fellow councillors on all points. Just to add to that, Mayor, that this study has involved really quite deep investigation of a range of different options, and the CFC option is certainly a very valid one and a good one. I think there might be questions around the type of surface, be that as it may. Soccer obviously is growing very rapidly in the Shire. It's kind of curious that we only have one club. One would think that perhaps there's room for two clubs and we could have a derby. Note too that it would be nice to one day see a bit of love for Wattle Flat Reserve, the often overlooked site of the first time that an England cricket team was beaten by an Australian team on Australian soil in 1861. But that's another matter. In agreement with the mover and seconder, I agree that it's critical that we act on this right now as soon as we can. And the plan we have before us, the officer recommendation, is the best and most cost-effective solution for this issue right now. But agreeing with Councillor Maltby's point that we can also hold that in one hand and also support CSC how and where we can. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, it's been a pleasure sort of being welcomed into that club over the last 2 years. It is vibrant and inclusive, and there's really exciting stuff happening there. And it's a down at the small sided on a Friday night. It's a absolute community experience. It's awesome. I'm really impressed with the level of consultation and feasibility in this. It's thorough. I think the recommendations are really sound. I've got a lot of sympathy for the secondary college and their ambitions there on their master plan and what's perceived to be an opportunity to help them along with their ambitions. I think Philip's highlighted the issue with costs, in that we need to be keeping costs down as much as we can wherever we can, and facing these massive renewal expenses regularly. I believe this was the recommendation, is sort of not in scope for us at the moment. And also, as Edwina pointed out, is maybe not fixing the problem that we're setting out to achieve in the first place, which is delivering that extra pitch. Also noting that the education department is much better resourced to deliver these sorts of infrastructure, or the state government, who are withholding around 1.1 million per year from Castlemaine Senior Secondary College. It wouldn't take a little bit of back pay for some of that to easily fund one of these. Sorry, I had to get in there. Look, I think this is a really good plan, and I thoroughly endorse it. Thanks to Director Enir and to Troy Leon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go back to Councillor Driscoll. You've got a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor. Nothing further add apart from I hope all councillors support the motion. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. I will then put the motion. All in favour? That's all of us. Motion is carried. And I guess just to sum up, thank you everyone for speaking to this. It has been a long time coming, and we've kind of been, very aware of the challenges that Castlemaine Goldfields Football Club are facing, given their pretty rapid growth. So hopefully this is able to proceed as quickly as we can and really open that up for even more participation. I think I have a lot of love for Castlemaine Football Club because, you know, my daughter started playing soccer last year and it has been absolutely life-changing for her. She has since unfortunately decided to go to Epsom, so now I'm driving a lot. I'm driving to Epsom a lot. And while it is a very painful drive, it is a beautiful facility with both synthetic and turf pitches, multiple with a, you know, there's a lot going on there. It is a real joy to be there. It's just very far away and it lacks, it's not quite the same as the beautiful inclusive culture that has been built locally. So I'm really happy that we're able to support soccer continuing to grow because it is, you know, it's very gender neutral. There are a lot of girls and gender diverse people playing this sport as well. And I think in terms of CSC, I don't think this necessarily precludes us from being able to be a part of their aspirations to have a better, you know, a soccer pitch as well. But I think for right now, knowing the amount of pitches we need 3 full-size pitches to make this work. It's just not the right option, but it doesn't mean that we won't obviously do whatever we can to support the school to grow and be the best it can as well. So I'm really hopeful that this will, you know, just mean that more people can play sport safely in, you know, appropriate in an appropriate place. And hopefully all the sharing of facilities and everything goes well and that we're able to attract the funding that we will need to really do this project justice. But I think it's very exciting and I really look forward to seeing, I guess, it all come to fruition as I'm sure do many of our young people and older people who play soccer. So really exciting. I think I'm just making sure that I'm up to the right place. Yep. Okay, we're on to 9.3 economy, which means we've hit our planning items for tonight. And our first planning item is 9.3.1. This is planning permit PA 024/2024, 329 Sears Road, Welshman's Reef. So I'm going to ask that Councillor Maltby, would you introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enable council to make a determination on an application for the use of the land for a place of assembly and function centre and a variation to an existing liquor licence at 329 Sears Road, Welshman's Reef. The application has been referred to council for a decision because 16 objections have been received, and with the officer recommendation to approve the application. Subject site is located within the farming zone Schedule 1 and is affected by the Erosion Management Overlay Schedule 1, Environmental Significance Overlay Schedule 2, and Significant Landscape Overlay Schedule 1 pursuant to the Mount Alexander Planning Scheme. The application was advertised and received a total of 21 submissions, 16 objections and 5 submissions of support. The application was assessed against and determined to be consistent with the relevant provisions of the planning policy framework. The proposed use of the land for a place of assembly and function centre, including a variation to an existing liquor licence, is considered appropriate within the context of the farming zone, subject to conditions. The proposal supports rural-based tourism and community engagement opportunities, contributing to the diversification of land use in the area without compromising the ongoing agricultural potential of the land. In forming this position, due regard was given to the grounds of objection, the views of relevant referral authorities, and the potential impacts on surrounding land uses. Appropriate measures have been proposed throughout the planning process to manage amenity impacts, including noise, traffic, and hours of operations. And I would move that council issues a notice of decision to grant a planning permit PA 024/2024 for use of the land for a place of assembly and function centre and a variation to an existing liquor licence at 329 Sears Road, Welshman's Reef, 3462, subject to the printed conditions in the agenda, and there's 40 of them.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Driscoll, thank you. Is there any opposition? Okay, that's fine. Councillor Maltby, I'll get you to speak to your motion now, please.
Thank you. As I just mentioned, there's 40 conditions, and a lot of them address a lot of the objections, as in operational time, the number of functions that can be held there, and the number of people. That area has about 3 or 4 wineries out there, and they're all active and trying to promote tourism and make a dollar naturally. But we're lucky in the Shire of Mount Alexander that there is many wineries, and we have a good reputation. If I took you to Harcourt, there's 2, 3 very good ones, and most of them do have activities that can accommodate the type of number that is in these conditions. So we shouldn't be knocking it back. And the planning department have really done their homework, and as I said, put in 40 conditions, and which talks about noise and numbers of people and being responsible and hours of operation, etc. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak now or reserve your right? No worries. Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, ma'am. I know all and have a good deal of sympathy for many of the objectors' concerns, and I wish to focus on the unknown effects this will have on native fauna. I note and take strong issue with the fact that no ecological assessment was undertaken for the application, especially given its location in an environmental significance overlay and significant landscape overlay, though noting it may not be technically required to do so. And also its proximity to important habitat and endangered species. I note in clause 12 of the planning policy framework, protection of biodiversity, I find the applicant's response to this to be insufficient. In my view, and I'm sure many others in our community, that our obligations to protect biodiversity need to be considered far more broadly than just no vegetation will be detrimentally affected. And that's a quote. Biodiversity needs habitat. Habitat includes the whole environment in which an animal lives. This includes noise and noise pollution and their effects on habitat and fauna. And this has not been considered or reported upon to my satisfaction. I appreciate, though, it baffles me that there aren't planning triggers in the environmental significance overlay and significant landscape overlay, and so they are not being considered here. But looking at the farming zone and the Mount Alexander planning scheme, which I understand is the trigger, 35.7.6 decision guidelines states before, and this is a paraphrasing, before deciding on an application to use land, the responsible authority must consider as appropriate the impact of the use on the flora and fauna of the site and its surrounds, and must consider the need to protect and enhance the biodiversity of the area. This planning application does not do this to my satisfaction. Noise is discussed, but only in terms of amenity and its effects on livestock, not wildlife. And this includes, to my understanding, references to the Environmental Protection Act and the Environmental Protection Regulations. In the acoustic report, I note that the noise sensitive areas considered are all residential dwellings, that none of the surrounding habitat is considered in this regard. Habitat Nature Kit, a state government tool to map and report on Victoria's biodiversity values, notes the herb-rich woodland habitat approximately 400 metres from the proposed stage. Nature Kit report this as having the highest relative habitat value in the state, 100 out of 100. It also notes box ironbark forest patches throughout the property and substantially just to the north with a habitat value of 81. It notes places that rank highly in habitat value likely support a high number of species and/or are an important place for a rare species. How will these species be affected by these large events? We don't know because there's not a report. Nature Kit also provides documentation of the following threatened and vulnerable species within approximately 10 kilometres of the property: musk duck, brown tree creeper, striped legless lizard, barking owl, southern whiteface, swift parrot, east great ergot, Australasian shoveler, growling grass frog, Caspian tern, freckled duck, little eagle. BirdLife data shows that there's swift parrot sightings 3 kilometres to the east. This is approximate. 4 kilometres to the north, 3 kilometres to the west, and 6 kilometres to the south of the Salador. So there are swift parrots all around this area. There hasn't been a swift parrot sighting on the actual location that's been reported. It doesn't mean they're not using it, and it doesn't mean they won't in the future. The swift parrot is described as critically endangered and one of just 3 migratory parrots on Earth, and describes their habitat in Victoria as woodland and box ironbark forests, all of which are either on the property or very close to the property. In the absence of any guiding report, I must reasonably assume that this woodland and box ironbark forest is supporting or could be supportive habitat for swift parrot. With similar distance to other noise-sensitive areas discussed in the acoustic report, I would expect that this most valuable habitat to be experiencing noise levels of about 60 decibels. A synthesis of 2 decades of research documenting the effects of noise on wildlife, published by Cambridge Philosophical Society Biological Review, states terrestrial wildlife responses begin at noise levels of approximately 40 decibels, and 20% of papers reviewed are documenting impacts below 50 decibels. In the absence of any presentations which satisfactorily identify the wildlife likely to be using this habitat or the effects that noise from the events will have on it, I have to assume that this will not be acceptable in the applicant's obligations to protect and enhance the biodiversity of the area. On these grounds, with a lot of sympathy for all the other points raised, I can't support this. And while I'm here, I'd like to foreshadow that I have a motion for refusal prepared, although I understand there may be a motion for deferral as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Sorry. Where are we? Does any other councillor wish to speak on this? Councillor Hayden and then Councillor Walker.
Thanks, Mayor. Pursuant to what Councillor Maddock spoke on, a lot of the legislation that guides considerations on the planning scheme from last century, there has been a lot of work in the last 15 years, particularly the last 10 years, on the impacts of high decibel human generated sound on fauna. A local wildlife ecologist, Professor Ewan Ritchie from Deakin University, makes the claim in a 2021 paper, peer review paper, quote, human-caused noise stresses animals and changes animal behaviour. It masks the natural soundscape, making it harder for animals to find mates or hear the calls of their young. It can also mean animals can't hear predators or their prey. Nocturnal animals will hide until a site returns to normal, reducing the time animals have to go about their life-sustaining activities, and exposes them to greater risks when they do go out. In species with low birth rates and short lifespans, a disturbance to breeding cycles can be catastrophic. For example, males of the genus Antechinus, small marsupials, which we have in this area around Welshman's Reef, live long enough for just one short breeding season. If they are disrupted, there are no second chances. The stress of human light, sound, smells, and disturbance can shorten an animal's life. Stress can make them more prone to illness and create problems with sleeping, reproduction, development, and growth that can last for multiple generations. Bird abundance found in central Victoria to decrease by 31% due to noise pollution, with birds remaining lost. The The range frogs can hear each other, for example, decreasing from 800 metres to just 14 metres due to noise of 50 to 60 decibels. There is an abundance of scientific literature on the impact, on the ecological impacts of sound pollution. And I share with Councillor Maddock the concern about the lack of a rigorous biodiversity study that may have touched on these issues. But I do think Councillor Maltby's points are compelling. We do have very fine wineries in the Shire. Those ones at Harcourt indeed cater for large events. Yeah, I think that my concern about this, Mayor, is that the scale of the assemblies, the numbers of patrons, and the nature of the countryside that these are proposed for, and taking into consideration Councillor Maddock's points from the toolkit, the green, the 100% habitat value of some of those patches nearby. The applicant does currently entertain or does currently conduct events at the site, successful events. I know they're a lot smaller than the ones that are applied for in the application. So I would like to foreshadow that I would like to present a motion to defer this so that to allow time for council officers to propose to the applicant that they consider revising the proposal to remove the place of assembly or large events component, subject to further detailed review, including re-referrals and public notice. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Like Councillor Hayden, I found it a intriguing proposal, and as still a relatively new councillor, learning that some of these issues are never simple and complex. I'm very sympathetic to the idea of outdoor festivals, help the economy of the wineries, the local economy. It fits in with our visitor economy strategy. But having looked into it, I feel that this is underdeveloped, and for me there's two glaring issues. The previous speakers talked about the noise impact on native fauna. I have to say I feel that there's an underestimation on the consideration of the noise on local residents. The sound plan talk about 102 decibels, 20 metres from the stage, and the proposal is for a acoustic barrier 2 metres in height for 20 metres extent directly behind the proposed stage. When you look at the site, you see the Lands of Natural Amphitheatre. That sound's just going to bounce back and travel. And when you're in an area that there's not much else around, it is going to be very loud and impacting a lot of people, I think, for quite a distance. That impact has been underestimated. That it's also likely that it sounds nice, 12 events a year, and you think one a month and sort of 4 times. It's more than likely, I think, these events are going to be clustered in the warmer season, and it's going to be pretty frenetic throughout that season. They're not holding outside events at the moment. There was nothing in the proposal I could find where they say talking about soundproofing the cellar area where they're holding it. So again, presumably sound from there is just going to go straight out. So I have a concern aside from fauna around the sound impact on the residents. My other big concern is around emergency management. It's a single dirt road in and out of there. I know, sure, the CFA says that, they've got an emergency management plan and all that. If there is an emergency evacuation and you have 700 people with over 200 cars, and in their submission they're saying up to 10 staff on duty, it's not going to be an orderly evacuation. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare. And at the same time, you've got residents trying to get out, probably with their animals, their pets, their horses. And then they cite Newstead Community Centre being the nearest safer place. That's, of course, on the assumption that it's safe to go to Newstead. It might not be. So I think it's the sort of thing you hope never ever happens, but you've got to consider worst case scenario. And in that, I think it could well be quite a disaster. So I noticed in the visit that the the dam they talk about, which to draw water from, was empty because we're in a green drought. But if the events are in the summertime, that's peak bushfire season when you could expect something to go wrong. So for those reasons, I'm open for the deferral. I'm open to the rejection. I feel it needs a lot more work before council could negotiate, before council could agree with it. I would love if the owners and the residents could get their heads together and thrash something out. I don't know if that's going to happen. You get a sense lines are a bit drawn at the moment, but it would be positive. But it just does not meet. It's not sufficient for me to be able to agree to.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Councillor Cordy.
Yes, look, I'll keep it brief, but for me, the impacts in relation to emergency services sort of, I reflect back to January the 8th, 1969, bushfire burnt from Cancurran to Harcourt and devastated the community. It was only a miracle that Maldon didn't burn. You know, I was a kid living in Harcourt. We had our suitcases packed. We thought Harcourt was going to burn. And if Harcourt had burnt and the fire got into Mount Alexander, we figured it was going to burn to the sea. That's what it was like. So emergency services, I don't think it's been properly considered the hazards of large scale events on this site, and you know, a lot of the hobby farm areas, they don't have livestock, so the fuel build up. I'm not convinced that all the issues have been covered off. Previously at council, we've seen simulations of bushfire events in proximity to Maldon, and the simulations of traffic. It's just your worst nightmare. So for me, I don't want to see large scale events on this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Driscoll, we're circling back to you now.
Well, thanks, Mayor. I just want to remind councillors that it's been a winery for 25 years. There's no construction on this. They're just trying to improve their business. I understand they're wanting 12 new events, smaller ones and the 3 larger ones. I think the larger ones potentially are difficult, but you know, if we don't support businesses and economic development, then everyone's just going to be on the government funds. You know, we've got to keep moving forward, and it's a great concept. There's a few problems with it, but you know, nothing's perfect. And I just want to remind other people that the swift parrot flies, or the musk lorikeet flies with the swift parrot. Many people get those two confused. So I have faith in the reports that support this, and I think we should be moving forward. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Back to Councillor Maltby for a right of reply.
Thank you. The 40 conditions address most of the things that the other councillors have raised. In fact, they address them all. The planning department wouldn't have recommended the granting of a permit if they didn't believe that the conditions were suitable. The referral authorities, as in the CFA, etc., would have said this is not right. They've all said yes. Are they going to get 700 in an event? There's only 3 of them booked in. Who knows? But the land is big enough and suitable enough, and there is noise restrictions in the conditions. Just to knock it back because it might scare a cockatoo away is not helping the community or this business that's trying to grow and help our tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We've all, everyone's had a chance to say something, so I will now put the motion. All in favour? And opposed? All right, so that motion is lost. We may have a division, so I'll ask again, all in favour? That is Councillor Maltby, Councillor Driscoll and myself. All against? Councillor Walker, Councillor Cordy, Councillor Maddock and Councillor Hayden. All right, so that motion has been lost. Do I have another motion, councillors? Councillor Hayden.
I move that this matter be deferred to a future meeting of council to allow council officers to propose to the applicant that they consider revising the proposal to remove the place of assembly / large events component, subject to further detailed review, including re-referrals and public notice.
Thank you, councillor. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, any opposition? All right, Councillor Hayden, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, and further to Councillor Walker's comments, I really hope the applicant and objectors and other interested parties and stakeholders can get together and try and come to some agreement about how to best develop this important economic asset for Welshman's Reef. I agree with my fellow councillors. It's really important for our visitor economy. But I feel like despite the indefatigable work of council officers in putting together these 40 conditions or recommendations, my concerns, as I've outlined with Councillor Maddock's points, and I agree with Councillor Cordy and Walker, I think if we can allow some more time for some more consultation, hopefully we can come up with a more agreeable compromise. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Serve my right. Thank you, Mayor.
No worries. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Maddock, there we go. Sorry, it's getting on.
Well done. Thank you, Mayor. I'm almost convinced that if we were to take the large events out of this, it could be acceptable, but I'm not quite there. I think we need the ecological report and investigation, and these events are still running late. There's local residents living close by. I think even if it was reduced, I think it would be short of something that I can support. That's why I've prepared the alternative motion for rejection. And I think, look, I'd hate for them to go through this process again, only for it to be knocked back on similar grounds, because it's not just the big events, it's the small ones too. So I've come to the conclusion that it's perhaps more honest and transparent, particularly from my point of view and my thinking, that we reject this now.
Thank you, councillor. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I'm a bit like Councillor Maddock. I'm not too sure which way to go. I've indicated I'm sympathetic to the idea of doing these things, but what we've heard about the impact on the native wildlife is going to it'll continue sort of. And if there were, say, 12 events in the cellar and that had been properly soundproofed, I'd be more open to it, but the deferral doesn't allow for that, which sort of makes it necessary. Because again, you say to them, go back and have a chat and talk, and they come back and say, well, we've found some compromises, and then we're saying, well, that's not good enough, is a real problem. So I think I'm probably still in the reject camp. It's not an easy one.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Sorry, I've split between various bits of paper right now. Okay, Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak? Well, you have to speak now, in fact.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, what this proposal is allows the business to move on with a lot of the events that they want to do, consistent with the winery operation that's in place now. But it's specifically seeks to exclude large scale of events, and the reason for that, from my perspective, the reason I support that is around it's less problematic in terms of emergency services requirements. There's very restricted access, but for a wedding or an event in the daytime, if there is an issue, most people are probably going to be okay. Whereas large scale events, I'm not satisfied that the conditions previously spoken about mitigate the risk. So yeah, I think that we'd need to do that. We need to do that work in order to, with the applicant, in order to come up with a middle ground. And like I know some of the objectors are not going to be happy, but really in the main it's pretty much business as usual. Like, it's an existing facility there. It means that they've got if we went down this path, and they'd have approval to conduct reasonable size events, so that satisfies the business aspects, as well as not creating a situation that's going to end up in a disaster. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to go back to Councillor Hayden. You've got a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor. And Councillor Cordy's position is a very important one. This is a well-functioning local business. I also note Councillor Walker's point about, I think I tend to agree with Councillor Walker, it would be great if there could be some more insulation on that tin shed cellar door. This won't prevent the operation from continuing to hold smaller scale events. And I hope this can lead to more conversation between the interested parties, that we can find a resolution that we can all agree to. I'm not so I'm not in favour of refusing this. I do think that if I kind of tend to agree with the first proposition of Councillor Maddock earlier, that if on the face of it, if you're looking at a dozen assemblies of a couple of hundred people, I could see how that probably could be managed. The sound pollution, the impacts, the emergency services management, all those issues could be managed. From where I sit now, it's those large ones which have me really concerned, and that unimaginable, Councillor Cordy mentioned 1969, we could think of 2009, those kinds of horrendous events. I think this is a fair compromise for us to consider, and I commend the motion to the chamber. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, everyone. Everyone's said their piece again, so I will put the motion. All in favour? Oh, and opposed? All right, motion is carried. You may call a division. All in favour? That is Councillor Maltby, Councillor Driscoll, Councillor Hayden, Councillor Cordy and myself, and opposed, Councillor Walker and Councillor Maddock. This is 9.3.2, planning application PA 259/2024, 147 Mostyn Street, Castlemaine. Councillor Maltby, would you introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enable Council to make a determination on an application for a change of use at 147 Mostyn Street, Castlemaine. The application has been referred to Council for a decision, as the Council Officer recommendation is to refuse the application. The subject site is within a commercial 1 zone and affected by heritage overlay HO 667 Castlemaine Central Conservation Area. The application was assessed against and determined that the proposal is not consistent with the relevant sections of the planning policy framework The application was referred to Council's Strategic Planning Department, who recommended refusal. It is recommended the application is not supported and a refusal for a planning permit is issued in accordance with the council officer's recommendation. However, Madam Mayor, I have a motion. And that is the council issues a notice of decision to grant a planning permit PA 259 2024 147 Mostyn Street, Castlemaine, for the use of the land for a dwelling subject to the following conditions. Layout not to be altered. 1. The use as shown on the endorsed plans must not be altered or modified unless otherwise agreed in writing by the responsible authority. 2. The use must be connected to a reticulated potable water supply to the satisfaction of the relevant water authority. 3. The use must be connected to a reticulated electricity supply. Visual amenity. 4. The building must be maintained in good order and appearance to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. General drainage requirement. The development must be drained to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. The site stormwater discharge is not to be increased by the proposed use development. The permit will expire if one of the following circumstances applies, i.e. the permitted use of the land for a dwelling will expire if one of the following circumstances apply. 1. The use has not commenced within 2 years of the date of this permit. 2. Within 6 months of a commercial use ceasing to be associated with the permitted use of a
I'm just
dwelling.
going to quickly interrupt and call a point of order. I've just had it pointed out that this one that you're reading right now, point 2 under 7A, needs to be omitted, please. So could that not form part of the motion?
Oh, the 6 months one?
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll
So
take that
we'll
out.
just omit that one if that's okay with everyone.
And the last piece was the responsible authority may extend the permit if a request is made in writing in accordance with Section 69 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Thank you. That we have a motion here. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hayden, thank you. Is there any objection? No. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. This property is located on the edge of the commercial zone. Previously, it's been a dwelling, and a few years ago, it became a medical centre, as in physiotherapy. There's many houses in that block in the commercial zone that are still being lived in by residents that have been there for a long, long time. The applicant is just wanting to use it as a house and these conditions will allow it to happen. They're not saying we want to change the zoning. They're just saying we would like to live there as the neighbours are as well.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Hayden, do you want to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thanks, Mayor. Not a lot to add. I mean, Councillor Maltby summed it up fairly clearly. I think this is not a radical change to the planning permit or to council processes. This is really just to allow those residents to live in that property without also running a business out of the front 2 rooms. It's interesting, this end of Mostyn Street, the Paris end of Mostyn Street, as I think some real estate agents might have called it in the past. You don't need to be Methuselah to know, thanks to the local press, that this is a site of a very famous old hotel. In fact, Urquhart Street, Castlemaine, was part of the commercial centre of Castlemaine once upon a time. A lot of Chinese businesses. The Cobb & Co depot was on that corner, a great big 2-storey building demolished in the 1870s for building materials. Really interesting end of town historically, but of course today it is largely a residential strip from Littleton Avenue up to Urquhart Street. I know there's the Restorers Barn and the Trades Hall. If we think about some of the subdivisions on that north side of Mostyn Street up there that are all mostly around residential infill development, I think this is a sensible a sensible approach to this issue. Of course, I think there is a natural reluctance for us to be shrinking the commercial core of the town, but this motion doesn't seek to do that. There's nothing preventing a future occupant of those houses to conduct a business and to apply to conduct a business if they see fit. We are seeing an expansion of that end of Castlemaine when we think about the Woolworths development. In some ways, it's a return to how things were 150 years ago. But I think this is a very reasonable motion, and I think it's a no fuss kind of a response that we can make. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Hayden. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Maddock.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I think our officers have done an excellent job upholding the purpose of the planning scheme in their recommendation to refuse this permit. And I commend Director Anir and Senior Statutory Planner Jennifer Stanwitz for doing so. And I consider their recommendations with the seriousness they deserve. I also just note that these recommendations in nature can't be nuanced. It's a black and white, this is a commercial zone, this is our recommendation. I like to imagine a different way of doing it where there's a sliding scale of appropriateness. And my view is if there was, this would be right on the not having a large impact. You said the core of the commercial centre. It's not, this is the fringe. This is right at the edge of that. And therefore, I think the impact on the commercial zone is minimal, if any at all. So I'm on that. I'm confident to support this motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. I think it's a gorgeous little house, and it'll be a great place for a family to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? No? Then I will go back to Councillor Maltby. You've got a right of reply.
I think the other councillors have spoken the way that we should vote. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. I will put the motion. All in favour? That's unanimous. Motion is carried. Nine point 3.3 Planning Application PA 091/2024 Twyford Street Harcourt Creation of an Easement. Could I ask Councillor Hayden to introduce this item, please?
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. So this is planning application PA 091/2024 Twyford Street Harcourt Creation of an Easement. And I move that Council issues a notice of decision to refuse a planning permit, PA 091/2024, for the creation of a carriageway easement at Twyford Street Harcourt on the following grounds. 1, the proposal is inconsistent with the strategic directions of the Mount Alexander planning scheme, which aim to reinforce settlement boundaries and prevent the inappropriate spread of urban activities in rural areas. And the clauses are printed there. By increasing demand for rural living developments, it threatens to alter the land use patterns and character of the rural area, undermining the strategic planning work outlined in Plan Harcourt for the coordinated expansion of Harcourt. 2, the proposal is inconsistent with the strategic directions of the Mount Alexander planning scheme, which seek to restrict residential development in areas lacking adequate infrastructure and services, and the clauses are printed there, as it entrenches historically inappropriate subdivision patterns in a locality requiring comprehensive investigation to determine future development viability. And 3, the proposal fails to deliver a fair and orderly planning outcome and does not adequately consider the existing use or potential future development of the site and surrounding land, contrary to the decision guidelines set out in clauses 65.01 and 65.02 of the Mount Alexander planning scheme. I commend the motion to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, thank you. Is there any opposition? Thank you. All right, Councillor Hayden, could you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so this parcel of land to the west of Harmony Way, between Twyford Street in the south and Gushes Road at the north, is essentially a collection of hitherto landlocked blocks of land. These blocks of land are smaller than 40 hectares. Currently, this is a zone which would require a large block of land to build a house on. Also draw councillors' attention in the report to the Plan Harcourt map, where you will see that there are 5 zones listed in the greater Harcourt area, A, B, C, D, and E. A and B being areas which we are currently proposing residential development in, to be followed by C, which is a very large area north of Eagles Road there. And then this land at Twyford Street and Gushes Road is in that western block marked on the map as Zone D. This suggests that the time for development here is not in the immediate future. Plan Harcourt is a comprehensive plan for the development of Harcourt. I think earlier we heard that there could be as many as 5,000 people living in Harcourt in the next decade or so. And a lot of that growth is being accommodated in the Plan Harcourt in that zone C as well as B and A. By moving to allow this roadway to be constructed, I think that there could be several complications. One, those blocks are not large enough under the current zoning to permit someone to build a house without special leave. And in many ways, we could be allowing the vendors of those blocks to be promoting blocks of land which might not be realistic places for people to actually build a house in any kind of a realistic time frame. So really my support for the officer recommendation comes back to basic planning process. We've had a very good process around the development of Harcourt. I think it's a sound plan, and I think we need to stick to it. I think by refusing this recommendation or denying this recommendation and allowing for the creation of this easement and then most likely subdivision and sale of these blocks would undermine those key strategic directions. And I just draw attention again to those key points from the recommendation that one of the key strategic directions of the planning scheme is to reinforce settlement boundaries. And that's not just in large centres like Castlemaine, but also in the smaller towns like Harcourt. And also in that second point that the strategic direction of the Mount Isa planning scheme seek to restrict residential development in areas lacking adequate infrastructure and services. And this defines these blocks of land. I think they are inadequately serviced at this point. Not to say that one day they won't be. I know they're lovely blocks of land. I know it's a beautiful place. But I don't think the planning is in place to support this kind of a development at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Cordy, do you want to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now, Mayor. Look, I thought about this one quite a bit. I travel down Gushes Road quite often and Harmony Way, and I look across at this site. Look, I think it's really just a matter of timing. I'd like to think that in my lifetime that I would see dwellings in this location, but I think the planners have done their job well in this instance. I think it's a little way off. I think more work needs to be done, and certainly a lot of other land in Harcourt that's identified for a development needs to be activated before this site. So you know, I feel for the applicant, but yeah, for me it's just an issue of timing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I understand the proposal fails to deliver a fair and orderly planning outcome, but we live in a crisis situation with houses at the moment, in my opinion, and this potentially is landlocked, could be unlocked with 10 lots. I think we need diversity within our different lots, and like when I moved the tiny house motion to get things moving, we need to act quickly. We need to have a bit more urgency upon us. I've been knocked back a few times with different lots over my journey. I just think we need to act a little bit more and get our heads outside the block and move forward. And we need to do things like that, which clearly we don't. But anyway, I just think this is an opportunity that we could have for other blocks to come onto for us. But that's my thoughts. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Maltby.
Councillor Driscoll is correct, but yes, it does need rezoning, and that's the issue. Maybe the applicant will reapply and ask it to be zoned rural living or whatever. But another 10 blocks in Harcourt is essential. Another 10 blocks in the Shire is essential. And they're already basically old titles, so there you go.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor. And I got to say, my initial response to this was very in line with Councillor Driscoll's, in that if we're going to build there anywhere, why don't we start taking steps towards that? But having looked at the detail, I take sympathy more so with the work that's done around the plans here. There's plenty of land available in Harcourt right now. So though, yes, we need to build more houses and change zonings, right now there's plenty of land. And I'm just brought to this line in point 2 of the recommendation, which is, by doing this would entrench historically inappropriate subdivision patterns in a locality requiring comprehensive investigation to determine future development viability. So I'm guessing by that there may be better options here, and that will come out once we go through a proper planning process, and it'd be premature of us to assume that would be the outcome. So yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? No? Then I'll go back to Councillor Hayden for a right of reply.
Thanks, Madge. Just to reiterate that there are plenty of blocks of land in Harcourt, and there are very good plans in place for the development of Harcourt, for the sustainable development of Harcourt. And I'm not sure that more rural living blocks are perhaps the blocks that we need so critically. I would have thought that looking at the papers around Plan Harcourt, the smaller lots around Eagles Road perhaps better satisfy the immediate demand for blocks for housing than these no doubt lovely blocks. And I share Councillor Cordy's hope that to see houses built on this one day. Harcourt is going gangbusters. It's only going to increase in size. I think it's a matter of timing. And I note too Councillor Maddock's point that perhaps if the applicant was to think more about applying for rezoning, and Councillor Maltby's point, then perhaps a better outcome for that applicant might be found. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I will now put the motion. All in favour? All opposed? Motion is carried. Thought you might. All in favour? That is Councillor Maltby, Councillor Maddock, Councillor Hayden, Councillor Cordy, Councillor Walker and myself. And opposed? Councillor Driscoll. Okay, well, it's the one that one of us has been waiting for. 9.3.4. Approval of leave for the Chief Executive Officer. And I'm going to ask Councillor Maltby to introduce this item, please.
This report seeks council's approval of annual leave for the Chief Executive Officer, Darren Fuzzard, from 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, the 17th of September, 2025 to 8:30 a.m. on Monday, the 27th of October, 2025. It also seeks approval of the appointment of Michael Annear as Acting Chief Executive Officer to cover the full period of the Chief Executive Officer's leave. And I'll move that Council approves annual leave for the Chief Executive Officer from 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday the 17th to 8:30 a.m. on Monday the 27th of October 25, inclusive. Appoints Michael Annear, Director, Infrastructure and Development, as Acting Chief Executive Officer for the period, again, 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday the 17th, 2025 to 8:30 a.m. Monday the 27th of October 2025, inclusive. 3, includes the following limitations on the delegations of Michael Annear as Acting Chief Executive Officer. No approval of changes to the organisational structure. No approval of new permanent positions. No rebanding of current positions. No changes to senior managers' contracts other than increments in line with the current enterprise agreement increments if they fall due during the period.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Driscoll. Is there any opposition? Ooh. Just trying to make it exciting. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak further to your motion?
I'm sure that the CEO deserves a good rest. He's been working extremely hard over the last 12 months, etc. And I have confidence in Michael Annear as the Acting Chief Executive Officer for that period. Thank you.
Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak to the motion?
I reserve my right, thank you, Mayor.
Does any other councillor wish to speak to this? Councillor Hayden.
Thanks, Mayor. I won't insist on sending off the CEO at 8:25 a.m. on Wednesday, the 17th of September, but I do very much look forward to welcoming the CEO back at 8:30 a.m. on Monday, the 27th of October. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Walker.
Send us a holiday card, please.
Anyone else? Councillor Maddock and then Councillor Cordy.
Just to say that Darren works very hard and that this holiday, I'm sure, is very well deserved, as is would be leave from any of the executive or any officers for that matter. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. When the CEO goes on holiday, usually something happens, but I'm sure Acting CEO Annear will be able to handle it.
Councillor Driscoll, back to you.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Look, every employee deserves to grab a holiday, including the CEO. We're lucky, as other councillors have said, that we have 3 directors able to do this, and I'd note that Director Knight has done it a couple of times before, so we're just sharing the love, which is great because, and it also, another point from a risk management point of view, it puts a fresh set of eyes on the role of being CEO, and that's good practice too. So from a governance point of view, it's great. So I hope you enjoy your holiday, CEO.
Councillor Maltby, you have a right of reply.
Yeah, sharing it around is a very good idea, and it has happened previously, so I'm sure we'll be in good hands, and Darren will enjoy his trip. Thank you.
All right, that was all very strange. I'll put the motion now. All in favour? Oh, look, all of us. Motion is carried. I don't think so, unless you want one, but probably not. So yeah, so the CEO will go on holiday, and Director Annear and I will, I'm sure, get endless enjoyment out of telling people that we're not related for a month and a half. All right, we are on to the last page. We are on the home stretch now. Item 10 is delegates reports. So I'll start. Councillor Maddock, would you like to do a delegates report?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. In late June, alongside our Deputy Mayor Hayden, we had the privilege to represent Mount Alexander at the Australian Local Governments Association National General Assembly, which saw 1,300 delegates from 300 councils all over the Shire. And it makes you feel very small, actually, is the impression I'm leaving with. There's just so much happening over the country. A lot of it is echoing, particularly the big top line issues with the challenges that we're facing in our community, which is good to understand and good to meet many councillors and mayors and talking about those issues and how those councils are responding to them. So really valuable from that point of view. And I'll be making some phone calls to people that I met there to get advice, and I'm sure it's going to be valuable. And then the good news of that is that Mount Alexander had 4 motions up there. Some of them were made sub motions to others, but particularly our housing one and our allied health services motions were the top. They were the motion. So I'm really happy to report that all those motions were carried. And yeah, thank you for the councillors for supporting me, and to the governance team for supporting that trip. It was hugely valuable. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Councillor Hayden, would you like to do a delegates report?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'll try and be quick. Just to add on that the Australian Local Government Association conference was really fruitful, as my fellow councillors advised before we went, perhaps more in terms of networking than the sessions themselves, although the sessions themselves were very useful, and I'll have some further updates on some particular programs and ideas at future meetings and briefings. Hopefully residents will be pleased to know that the low emissions transport plan went very well. The sleeper train to Canberra worked very well, and didn't need to fly. So that was good for me. Although Goulburn is a jolly cold place at 9 p.m. in the middle of winter to hang around at the train station, and I'm really happy about how nice and warm V-Line waiting rooms are compared to New South Wales State Rail. Despite the warmth of the lovely staff of New South Wales State Rail, the heaters, anyway, that's another story. It was a great pleasure to attend the Disability Inclusion Advisory Group meeting, expertly chaired by Director Knight yesterday. The group hadn't met, was scheduled to meet a month or so ago. So it was really good that group came together. Also with Councillor Maddock and Director Knight and Alana Cooper and a range of other officers, the Welcome Baby to Country event last week, which fell within NAIDOC week, was a really lovely ceremony up at the tea rooms, or outside the tea rooms at the Botanical Gardens. The sun was shining. Reports that Bunjil had been called upon to pull a few strings with the weather were going around, and it was lovely weather up there. And I think there must have been, I mean, I didn't count, but there were at least 100 people there, probably 50 babies, do you reckon? Something like that, 50 babies, and toddlers as well. Yeah, that's it for me. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks for going and representing us at ALGA this year at the National General Assembly. It's, I think a couple of us, Councillor Driscoll, when he was Mayor and when I was Mayor last time, we've both attended and found it great. But it's nice to share it around so that other people can have that experience. And well done as well on all the motions getting up. That's really, really fantastic. Councillor Cordy, do you want to do a delegates report? Councillor Maltby, Councillor Driscoll.
So first I want to thank the Mayor for fronting up to the Rotary 90th anniversary gala dinner. so it was good. I'm a keen Rotarian, and so I was there. It was a good event, and so I want to thank you, Mayor. That was great. And I also attended the Mount Alexander Shire Council Micro and Small Business Forum, which I thought was really well done, actually. And it was pretty busy, a lot of people there, and a lot of questions going through, and it had quite a diverse range of different things happening for the day. So I think it was really well organised. So thank you, Economic Development.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Walker.
Nothing specific, just briefly. So I felt like I've been doing a lot. I looked at my diary and there's quite, but it's just general community stuff, meetings, things like that. Nothing specific.
Fantastic. I mean, that is a lot of the job, so keep up the good work. So I've been on leave. I only got back yesterday, so I haven't been here for 2 weeks. So the Deputy Mayor, Hayden, has filled in for me for 2 weeks. Thank you very much. And thanks for letting me go and have a break, because I really needed it. And I am happy to report that I did not talk about council once in that 2 weeks, which isn't actually an effortful thing to achieve in a community as small, and required me to have very, very firm boundaries. But I feel replenished and rested and ready to get back to fighting the good fight. I thought I didn't have anything to talk about, but I did a few things before I went on leave, which I'll just briefly share. Oh God, there's another one. So first, I attended and spoke at the Student Ideas Pitch, and this is an event we've had for the last maybe 3 or 4 years, where representatives from each of the primary schools in the Shire are invited into the council chamber, and they they have an opportunity to think about a project that would either help their community, help their school, make things better in a way for people in their community. And then they pitch that idea to the mayor, and the mayor, gives them some feedback about their idea. And this is the second time I've done it, and Councillor Driscoll also did it when he was mayor. And it's a really special event because, one, the kids just love being here. It's a pretty fun day for them to be in the council chamber, and something a bit different. Highlight of the day, I've been told, is me giving them a tour of my office where they got to play with all my fun fiddly things, and I also gave them some lollies. So you can't say that I don't know how to win kids over. Their ideas, though, were just phenomenal. And I think even more so than last time, I noticed how empathetic and caring they are, and all of their ideas were very much they were very mature ideas, and so many of them kind of effortlessly aligned with council policies and directions. So that's really exciting. All these schools now, there were, I think, 7 in attendance. They will have the opportunity to apply for a youth quick response grant to help make their project into a reality if they want to. And there could be some really beautiful things come from that, including like intergenerational opportunities and, a list of rules for the playground so everyone plays games the same way. To ease tensions. But it was a really lovely idea, and it's always wonderful to get to spend time with young people. I think a little while ago now, it was exciting. So there is a bit of the Campbell's Creek Trail that had been missing for many, many, many years. It was colloquially termed the missing link, and it's been around for a long time. Nobody can tell me exactly when, but it's long enough that I feel like I was either a child or a teenager when it was all starting to kick off. So it's been, an amount of time, and through, the incredibly hard work of Director Anir's team, including Director Anir, we have finished. We've closed the gap. We have finished the missing link. The track now connects all the way through from just across from the Camp Reserve in Castlemaine, and you're able to walk off-road or cycle all the way to Campbell's Creek, and with the extension of the footpath now all the way out to the Campbell's Creek Recreation Reserve. And that is so big. On the day, because it was my dog's birthday, I decided to walk with my dog to the event. So I walked from Camp Reserve, and it was just beautiful. And the amount of people I ran into enjoying the day was lovely. And then getting there, and to coincide with the launch of this, the Friends of Campbell's Creek, who were a project partner in this, along with Dika and Jara. Anyone else? And Naldarum? Yeah, that's right. So they had planned a platypus picnic to celebrate 25 years of Friends of Campbell's Creek, as well as potentially a renaming of the track to mean Platypus Track. I don't have the text in front of me, but in local Jara language. It was just so special to be there. Lisa Chesters was in attendance. We received funding from various places to make this happen. And I don't know, when I was speaking to it, I guess what I was trying to communicate to people was, while it was in some ways a difficult decision because it was a very costly project because it was complicated, it was not easy to make the track connect. That is part of the reason why it hadn't been done. So in some ways it was a difficult decision to pledge this much money to complete this project. But in other ways it was such a simple decision because the benefit that it is going to provide so many people, as was evident, I think, on that day. I can't remember who was there, but it was just the buzz and the amount of people was unbelievable. And I just felt it was very much one of those times, which honestly we get so rarely, where that celebration and, it's like, oh, you're doing a good thing, council. And everyone was kind of on the same page about it. Almost everyone was on the same page about it, but it was a really special one. And I think I personally basked in the glow of that one for quite a while and have been frequenting the trail since. As Councillor Driscoll mentioned, I did have the pleasure of attending the Rotary 90th anniversary gala dinner. It was beautiful. I grew up here and have had, I don't know, I've kind of been aware of Rotary my whole life, and I was able to tell the story of my first Rotary experience when I was 11, and my primary school debate team was invited to the Northern, back when it was a pub, to debate in front of Rotary on the topic, should you be proud to be Australian? It was something very like that, and we were not good debaters, but we wooed the crowd by singing the national anthem and chanting Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. We still lost, but I got a tea towel and I still have it, so that's pretty exciting. Also, what else did I do? Oh, the Micro and Small Business Forum. Again, as Councillor Driscoll said, it was excellent. The range of people and the range of sessions that were provided was it was really, it felt like quite a unique and place-based event. Everyone I've talked to who attended has only good things to say about it. The economic development team just planned it so well. And I had the pleasure of facilitating a panel session, which was so good, except obviously I did not keep to time in any way, shape or form, but it was all just so interesting. And I learnt a lot about a number of things from some very experienced people, particularly around weather, which I found just fascinating. But everyone I've spoken to has just said they feel a lot more positive about potentially starting a small business now. So that's very exciting. I think maybe it was even that same day, along with Director Knight and Director Landy. I'm not sure if Director Anir was there, but we were at the library where the new Warrarak mural was unveiled. So this is a piece of artwork created by the Warrarak group, which sits in Nalderun. So this is a group for women and gender diverse people where they go out on country, I think once a week, and just be themselves. And along with First Nations artist Dakota Nelson, they have created this absolutely beautiful permanent artwork on the wall in the library. It's one of the first things you see as you walk in, and it just fits there so perfectly. As well as the artwork, I have to say, it was one of the more emotional events I have ever attended. The absolute love and positive regard that people in that room had for each other, and particularly listening to the young people, many of whom I've taught in primary school as their cooking teacher, and they were having tricky times, and to see the incredible young people and young adults they are becoming, and the confidence and the surety that they've been given through the connection to other First Nations youth and adults and mentors is just very special. It was incredibly, incredibly moving, and I encourage you all to go and have a look at it. And I guess the last one, so just as I went on leave, in fact, the day I went on leave, I came back a little bit early so that I could attend, along with Director Anir and Gino from our engineering team and Councillor Maddock, a levy bank project update and community session in Campbell's Creek. So levies, what a big journey this has been. When I think about kind of the bucket list of projects that sit in the back of my brain and kind of go, we've got to get this done, having closed the missing link and having built the low-level crossing, and things proceeding with some of our other master plans, it does feel like the levies kind of hover there. and it's so challenging. But to get to spend more time with that community and really, I don't know, try and get everyone onto the same page about where we're at and what we're doing and why. It's such a challenge because it is complex, and a lot of it is based in modelling, because we don't know how much it's going to rain, and we don't control the weather, and we're just trying to do the best we can to protect people's houses. And there's consequences from anything we do when it comes to water, but particularly Director Anir, you just handled it so well, and I was prepared, for it to be a lot more tense than it was, and I think you managed it phenomenally. And it was great to speak to those residents and to really get a sense about the impact that this stress has on them. And but it was, it's a big one, and this is still coming. Obviously, we've got the levies in Castlemaine, Campbells Creek and Newstead still underway. All that work is still going, and I think we're facing some tough decisions down the track as we try and reach a place where we can achieve the best possible outcome for the most people without kind of unintended consequences for anyone. So that is the last thing I did, and then I absolutely did need to go on leave. I didn't even mention, I probably should. One last thing, kind of walked back in this week, and there was a bit, I kind of knew it was happening, but walked back in and remembered that we had a special guest visit us today, and also tomorrow. We've had the Governor of Victoria, Margaret Gardner, Her Excellency, visiting us today. We met with her. Some councillors were able to meet with her today, and we will also be, some of us, seeing her again tomorrow at an event. It's an interesting thing to host the Governor, and I'm really appreciative that she's come to visit us, and really given us quite a lot of time to hear about the Shire and the great things about it, but also the challenges that we're facing. I feel like she's been really receptive to listening and to really taking in what we've been talking about. So we've got more of that tomorrow, visiting some local businesses with her, the Deputy Mayor and I, and then a small event in the afternoon. So for those of you who can attend, it'll be lovely to see you there, and I'll leave it there. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just leave our list of meetings that are mine as tabled, councillors. Happy to answer questions as always. And just wanted to say thank you all for approving my leave. I very much appreciate that, and I'm glad it gives you so much joy to debate that matter before coming to a conclusion. I do thank you very much for that, though. And the thing that I would also add, which many of you acknowledged, in addition to something that Councillor Cordy said to the Governor today about how well you function as a team, which was again demonstrated tonight with a number of matters where you constructively disagree and form a well-informed decision with each other. In addition to that point that Councillor Cordy made, we're incredibly fortunate to have the three directors that we do have, and I can only say how confident it makes me that those three people are here supporting you and leading the organisation when I go away on holidays, because I absolutely do get to go away and have a restful holiday because I trust each one of those people implicitly and explicitly to lead this organisation beautifully while I'm away. So thank you all, and Director Anir, on this occasion, thank you particularly for filling in for me while I'm away. So thanks, councillors.
Thanks, CEO. Yeah, we're doing all right, everyone. Well done. I'm going to whip through the very last few things. Item 11, notices of motion, we have nil. Item 12, urgent special business, we have nil. Item 13, confidential items, we have nil. And I will close the meeting at 9:22. Thank you, everyone.